Hello everyone. So today I'm going to discuss with you something very interesting, and it is going to be a continuation of one of my previous videos. And in that video I have received lots of requests to make a video on this particular situation as well. So if you remember, or if you go to my previous videos, there is a video where I discussed about authenticating Postman with Salesforce. How you can authorize your Postman with Salesforce in order to make API calls into Salesforce from Postman using connected app basically. So I would highly recommend to watch that video in order to be able to build the integration from scratch, that is creating the connected app inside the Salesforce or then making the configuration in the Postman. So here I will show you a most common question, basically a most common situation that most of you might have came across, that whenever you used to, come back and try to make an API call to your Salesforce org, and if the session is expired, you won't be able to make API calls. So you have to basically regenerate your access token or session ID manually. So in that video, I have showed you that way, that how you can actually regenerate. That was a manual step basically, but in this video I will help you create something, configure the Postman in such a way that you can actually generate the access token automatically with a single click. You don't have to just generate the access token, utilize it again in your configuration. You don't have to do any configuration changes. Just a button click will actually generate your session ID once again. So here, as you can see, if I want to generate my access token quickly without needing to copy and then pasting it in my configuration again and again, rather I will just click on this simple button. It will generate new access token for me, and everything will be taken care in the back end. So if I try to make an API call, I should be able to, yes, see, I got a response. So how did I configure this particular post action, which is not only generating my new access token, but it is also configuring something behind the scene, due to which my other requests are also started working properly. So I will simply go through the entire steps, and if there is some time left, then I will also create a fresh new one for you. So first of all, you have to create a collection first of all. So whatever configuration I have done as of now, that I will show you here, then we can create a new one as well. So first, let's see. So this is the collection that I've created. First step is, under the authorization tab, you have to configure the type of the authorization or authentication. In my previous video, I have discussed about OAuth 2.0, where we had to manually generate the access token and use it, then configure your collection back so that your access token is regenerated. That was a manual step. But here we will make use of bearer token. And see, there is a token, which token to be used. So in order to make it dynamic, or maybe access it anytime whenever it is generated, I have referred this variable. Now where this variable is coming from, so this is the, I will discuss that as well. This is the authorization tab settings. Now you have to go to the variables tab here. Okay, so these are the many number of variables that I've created for the collection. As you can see, under client ID, I have put the client ID value, client secret, username, with which user you want to authenticate yourself, then the password, sorry, and then there is something called secret token, but it is nothing but the security token. So there are situations when you have to use your password along with your security token. But in my case, what I have done is I have whitelisted my IP login IP ranges for my profile. So I'm not asked to provide the security token. I can log in with my normal password, but I will help those guys as well how you can whitelist your login IP ranges as well. Then this is the security. So this variable is nothing but which is being referred here. You see, whatever security access token, sorry, not the security token, access token will be stored here, will be used by my authorization, collection authorization. Then there are some other details like endpoint. This is my org domain URL. Then the user ID, how are they coming from, I will also show that. Then the domain, so this domain is nothing but the generic Salesforce URL for login to production orgs. Then this is the overall setting of the collection. the first collection that you have created, the authorization and the variables. Now we have to go to this is the first request that we have to create in order to automate our request JSON, I mean not request JSON, the access token generation. So this is the first action that we have to configure. So it will be a post action. Basically it will, the URL will be the domain. This variable is nothing but whatever I was showing here, this domain. This is the Salesforce login domain URL. So I'm just using that variable here. So if it is expanded, it will be something like this. Then slash services slash auth2 slash token. So this endpoint is used to generate my token. What all body or input I have to pass in this particular request is grant type password, client ID. You can also refer to the client ID variable that is being declared in this collection. You can directly use this client ID and client secret, enclosing them into the double parenthesis, okay, like this. And then I'm using username and password. So these are nothing but coming from my collection variable that are being already declared and assigned a value into it. Now the next thing that I've configured in this post action is something you will see under test. So there is a small script. This is playing the most important role, I would say. So as soon as I hit this URL or endpoint passing these parameters, it will create a request JSON, I mean not the request JSON, the access token for me, along with other details as well, like the endpoint, user ID, org ID, where all these details. So what am I doing is I'm setting those variables, collection variables, with the value that have been generated. So if you see, once we hit this URL, these are all information that we are getting. Access token we are getting. I'm just assigning that access token value into my collection variable. Then similarly, instance URL is something that I'm assigning to endpoint URL. And then other details like user ID, org ID, these can also be fetched. So this script is very important. Although you will be able to generate the access token, but if you don't assign them to the collection variables, it won't work for you. So every time you have to just click on this button, it will do the assignment behind the scene. And if then you can perform your multiple request as you want to. Okay, so if you want, I can show you by creating a brand new collection with all this configuration, and we can discuss. So let's create a, okay, so where you can get your client ID and client secrets, very simple. If in your Salesforce org, under the connected apps, you will see this manage consumer details. So you have to watch my previous video. Okay, it will give me an OTP to be able to view that. But once you provide the OTP, you will be able to see the client ID and client. Okay, let me show you only. I have received the OTP as well. 710689. So here are they. Consumer key is nothing but client ID. Consumer secret is client secret. You will get all these details from here. So let's create one brand new collection. Not import. It should be a new one. Choose collection. Name it as SF integration with Postman. And as I said, under the authorization, we will choose the type as bearer token. And let's create the variables, and then we will just use that variable over here. Now again, I have to create so many variables here, but yeah, we don't have to provide all the values into that. It's just that we have to provide few important values. So why don't I just pause my video here and complete declaring the variables, then I can resume so that I can save some time. Let me pause and resume back again. So yeah, I'm done with the declaration of the variables. So as you can see, I have provided values into few of them only. Rest all will be automatically generated and assigned via my script. So I provided client ID, client secret, username, password, and as I said, I don't want secret token because I have whitelisted my login IP ranges. Access token will be automatically generated, user ID, org ID, as well as endpoint. These all I will populate from the other requests. So first of all, after declaring all these variable, I have simply go back to the authorization tab, and here I will refer that variable directly. So I'm saying whenever whatever access token value is assigned to this variable, I just want to use that for my authorization purpose. So I'm just putting that variable, referencing that variable here. Let me save this. So this collection configuration is done. We just have to configure the authorization tab and the variables tab. Now we have to create one request. Add request. Let's name it as generate session ID. The very first step to be done, and it will be a post action. The URL will be same as what I have used in my previous setup as well. So this domain is nothing but it is coming from the collection variable login.salesforce.com, then services auth and then token. But apart from this, we have to provide some input data as well, we can compare this with this setting as well. So let me declare these variables. Now again it is going to take some time, but I will not pause my video this time. I will simply continue configuring this part. Grant type, then client id. So instead of providing the client id value that I have provided here directly, I will use my collection variable that I have already configured in my collection setting. This is client id which is already there in my collection, under my collection variables, if you remember. Then client secret, this is also something configured, already configured in the collection variable, so I will use that client secret. Then comes username. All these variables are already stored in my collection variables, all these values. So whatever I'm passing in this request, I'm just referring to my collection variables, and that they will generate the value for it. They can be used by this request. Password as well. Now this endpoint configuration is done. Now the body is configured, and as I said, the most important part, the script which will actually assign those values of the session id or the access token into my respective collection variables. So whatever access token that will be generated, it will assign to this variable, which will ultimately be used by my collection. Here it will be used here. This is the parent most. And apart from other information like endpoint, org id, user id, I will simply save this, and you will see something very interesting. As you can see now, in this variable, few of the columns are blank, like access token, user id, they will be generated just now. Let me just try to send this request. So it has created new access token. If I go back to my collection variable, here you will see that all the values are generated and assigned accordingly. So this is my access token assigned, this is my user id, login I mean org id, as well as endpoint is also configured properly. So this is the power of my this test script, whatever you are saying seeing here. Now I can be able to make any api call to my salesforce org. I will make this one only, get account again. I will name it like this, and it will be the url endpoint will be the same. I will just use the endpoint variable from the collection variable. As I said, it has already been assigned to a value. And save this, send, and yeah, I'm getting the data. This endpoint variable is nothing but this whatever I have just populated. So this is how you can automate your session. So if you want to see something, if I just simply remove this access token from here, now I have no active session. So I won't be able to make api calls, and it will show me the same message. I don't have to again go and manually generate the access token to use. I can simply click this. My script will run. It will again generate an access token, assign it here automatically. This is happening automatically. I'm not doing anything. And then I can be able to make API calls again. So I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.